Hi, and welcome to episode 55 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Monday the 24th of October 2016 and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet. It's great to get the chance to spend a bit of time with you as I chat about my knitting, a little bit of spinning, as well as the Australian National Field Days, which is an agricultural show that I went to last Friday, and I managed to get some yarny acquisitions there. So a friendly reminder that the Give Me Colour Knit Along is wrapping up on the 31st of October, so next week I'll record on Tuesday so that I can draw the prize winners. If you have any finished objects, then pop by the Ravelry group and put them in, and all the rules are there for the type of colour work projects that are eligible. If you're still working on some projects, then fear not, please put your progress photos in the chatter thread and you'll still be in the running for a prize. So I have some works in progress, not a great deal, but a little bit. So I'll start with my Echoes from Corellia socks. Oops, just dropped a project bag. So these socks are a free pattern by Tinacool, and I'm knitting these as part of the Give Me Colour Knit Along. Last week I had been working on one of the socks and I had finished up, or I was working on the heel. So I have now gone past the heel and made a jumble of yarn. It's nothing new here, and I've worked my way up to the next colourwork section so that I was able to swap my needles out and do the same section for the second sock. So it's a little bit squished up at the moment, but you'll see that the cable goes all the way along there, and it's my first time knitting a cable on 2mm needles, and it actually, after a little while, it gets a little bit tough on the hands to be working such a tiny gauge and doing the cables on every row, but I think that the effect is well worth it. So that's up to there, and my second sock I'm just working on the last part of the leg before I start the heel flap. So I'm a little bit worried that I might not get these finished in time for the end of the knit along, but I already knit a top, so it's not a huge drama if I don't get them finished, but I'm going to try to get them finished for next week and blocked and tested out to see how they feel. So the yarn that I'm using is mostly a sort of some yarn that I picked up in Finland that I'm not too sure what the yarn actually is, but it seems like it's 100% wool, and then a little bit of grey Regia yarn in there. So they're fun, but the cables, once I finished up the cables on the first sock, I was kind of pondering whether or not I should just do the colourwork section so that I got a bit of a break from the cables. But I thought if I do that, then I might end up with 1.5 socks. So best to just stick to the routine of doing the sections on each sock that I'd originally started off with, and I should end up with finished socks soon. Just picking up my fallen project bag. So this is the second project that I'm working on at the moment, and because I was going to the Australian National Field Days, I realised that the socks that I was knitting on weren't going to be very car friendly because I wasn't driving, so I cast on a new sock, and that's as far as I got in the car. And just a bit of a cuff, and I'm knitting this with some Finnish Novita Nalle yarn, and I cast on 60 stitches with 2.25mm higher sharp circulars for a change, and the plan is to, after I finish the cuff, is to use this yarn, which is also the Nalle yarn, and I think that this is self-striping, but I'm not entirely sure. It looks self-striping to me, but it might surprise me. But I think that that will work quite nicely as a sock. I'm not sure yet whether I'll do the heels and the toes. I might just do the toes with the blue because I'm worried that I don't have a great amount of it. So maybe a little bit further on the cuff, but I'll keep these as in the car knitting, and you might not see them for a little while depending on how much driving I have to do versus somebody else. So that is on the go. And then I decided to do a little bit of spinning. So my spinning wheel needed a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of adjusting. I played around with the drive band and the brake bands and did some adjustments, and I spun up a tiny little bit of white fin tops from Kathy's Fibres. So this is blowing out a little bit at the moment with the lights. That's probably a bit better. And it's just a chain ply, and it was just while I was trying to figure out how the new drive band and the brake band were working. So didn't get very far with it. It was the uptake was very fast on my wheel, and it felt like it was too fast, and so I sort of gave up on doing the adjustments with that. And I then decided to put some Ashford fibre on my wheel. So I haven't got very far yet, but this is how it's looking so far. This is an 80% New Zealand Merino, 20% silk, and it's a cinnamon colourway. So it's got lots of little bits of pale sort of reds and greens and browns and yellows in there. So it should be interesting how that turns up once I actually get it into a skein. And I've spun some of their fibre before. The silk content makes it a bit slippery, but I did manage to get my wheel adjusted enough that it didn't feel like I was battling with the wheel anymore. So this will come up good once I make a bit more progress on it. I haven't had any progress on my Taskutaki cardigan this week. I was focusing on my socks, and it was a pretty busy week, so that will have to wait until hopefully next week when I'll be able to show it off again. But I thought I'd show a bit more of my mum's knitting, seeing as my own knitting content hasn't been, or that my output hasn't been that great. So last week I was showing the colourwork socks that she was working on. So she's finished them off now. And last week I'd forgotten that she'd actually knit another pair of socks, but they've ended up on someone's feet, so I'm not able to show those, but she had actually finished another pair last week, or the week before. So these have got these snowflake designs on the front, and then another design on the back and the foot, and all very, very clever, and they look great. So these haven't been blocked yet, but they look pretty awesome just as they are. She then decided that she needed a collar. I knit her I think it's called the Boneyard shawl. I think it's a Stephen West pattern that I knit a few years back, and she's been wearing that over the winter, and she said that she loved it, but she decided that she needed a cowl. So she knit this, just sort of making it up. I gave her some of my leftover yarns, and what she's done is sort of created a cowl with a longer front piece so that it can sit inside her jacket, and then she's put some crochet shells around the edge, and pretty impressive yet again with what she's done. So this will be keeping her warm next winter. She's also then cast on another sock, and this time she's using a self-patterning yarn, as well as she's done some ribbing at the ankle to keep the sock in place, and then done the grey toe as well. So while she was working on the second of these socks last night, I managed to convince her to let me video a little bit of her knitting. So she knits continental, and it's just stockinette that she's knitting in the video that I'll pop in. She was a little bit worried about people seeing her make a mistake as she was knitting, but I think part of the fascinating thing is how quickly she sort of her hands can react to making a mistake and correcting it. So I think it's on the third needle that you'll see it. So I'll pop in a little video here of my mum knitting. I need to study that and have a bit more of a look at what she's doing to try to improve my own knitting. But I think it's great to be able to see how other people knit. So that's it for the knitting, really. But I went to the National Field Days, which is an agricultural show, and it's held near Orange. So it was I think it was about a 45-minute or an hour drive from here. And there were plenty of tractors and sheds and hay bales and lawn mowers and all sorts of things. But I was on the lookout for fibre and yarn, and there wasn't a great deal, but I was kind of surprised by what I did find there. So I went with my mum and a friend, and there were some sort of different intentions for what the day would hold. So it was a bit of a whirlwind sort of tour, trying to get everyone's sort of favourite things checked out, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I made a beeline for Tracy Mackie, who is a local artist here, and I have a little alpaca card up there that I picked up some months ago from her studio, and she was a featured artist at the National Field Days and had a great exhibition there, but I didn't get a real good chance to have a look at it, apart from picking up some cards and saying hello to Tracy. So I'll show you the cards that I got. So hopefully these don't crinkle too much, but there's her beautiful sheep. There's a wonderful cow. So these are prints off off larger paintings that she does. And then I got two of these little sheep just having a bit of a roam, and these are available from tracymackieart.redbubble.com. so from there you can see all her different artworks and order them. So I think that her cards are particularly unique and a lot of fun. So I also went to the alpaca section, so there seemed to be a bit of a focus on alpacas. There was quite a few alpacas in pens that I had a bit of a chat to, and there were some fleece sellers and fibre sellers. There was also a spinning group, but I didn't get a chance to chat to them, and there was a number of people selling all sorts of alpaca things, so I had to pop by the Adagio Mills stand and pick up these two. So these are 50-gram balls of 4-ply alpaca yarn that is spun in Orange, so very local, and I've knit with this yarn before and it's amazing. These ones are called Weathered Wood, and from batch 2016-0208, so the 2nd of August. At least that's how I figured out that their little batch numbers get sort of organised. It's a great yarn to work with, so don't entirely know which pattern I'm going to use these for yet, but last time I picked 2 different colours, so it was a bit hard to pick a shawl pattern, but these will turn into a shawl at some point. I also picked up some alpaca tops, and there's 280 grams in white. It says ideal for felting, from Dural Alpaca Park, and chatting to them, they said it should be okay to spin with and play with. So for $5.50, it's a bit of a bargain to get that much and just sort of play with. I then wandered around and I found one hand-dyed yarn seller, but there wasn't a lot of choice with colours, and the hanks were kind of small. They I think they were about 30 or 40 grams, so it just sort of wasn't the sort of thing that I was really after. But it was interesting to see that there weren't too many, and it would be lovely to see more hand-dyed yarn sellers there in the future. I then stumbled across a mohair tent where there was some mohair or Angora goats that they get the mohair from, and had a chat with a gentleman there who was spinning on an e-spinner. Had a bit of a chat to him about this e-spinner, and he let me take some video of that, so I'll pop that in. And I also got this. So this is some natural mohair, and they weren't selling I asked them if they were selling some small bags of mohair, and they weren't, but they sort of organised this for me because I asked for it. So this will be interesting. I have no idea how to actually spin it. I was sort of watching him but too busy chatting to really pay attention to the technique that he was using, so I'll have a look at the video and see what he was doing, but that will be something fun to experiment with. I then bumped into a Corriedale sheep tent, and there were lots of Corriedale sheep and other sheep in there, and there was a woman spinning some Corriedale, and this is a crinkly bag. So she gave me some Corriedale fibre, and you can't really see it in the plastic bag. It's been washed, and I just need to card it a little bit and give that a try. So it was definitely fibrey, but not as much as perhaps that I had hoped for, but more than what I expected, so that was good. And apart from that, there's not been a great deal happening around here. Just very busy with the Etsy shop, but I have been having some native animal encounters. So on, I think it was Friday afternoon, we were in the garden and suddenly spotted a kangaroo hopping along in the paddock nearby. Later on at sunset, I spotted it from the window, and I ran out with my camera and managed to get this very, very blurry sort of picture of it hopping off into the sunset. And then on Saturday, I went outside and it was just sitting there staring at me. So I don't know if it's an actual kangaroo or if it's a wallaby, but it's pretty special to see. And then yesterday I saw a little lump wandering along by the fence line, and it turned out to be an echidna. So we sort of went roaming around to try to find where it had gone, whether it had gone under the fence, but it was just sitting by a tree. It's a bit hard to make out with the footage that I got, but I'll pop that in anyway because it's pretty special to see an echidna, and especially during the daytime. Wouldn't expect it to be sort of out in the open during the daylight. So just a short little episode this week, but don't forget to get your Give Me Colour knit along entries in, and I hope that you're having lots of fun with your crafts and getting lots more done than I am. But hopefully soon I can get back into the swing of balancing my time so that I can get more knitting done. So I'll see you soon.